It's February. Nick Saban's been retired for almost a month, and Jim Harbaugh's been in the NFL for about 2 weeks. So at this point, you would imagine most coaching searches have come to a close. That was the case until last night when Jeff Hafley announced he's departing Boston College to become the next defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers. And now there's a prominent job available in the ACC, and someone's got to fill the shoes for 2024. So who are the top replacements for Hafley at BC moving forward? Let's go ahead and discuss. But if you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. We talk college football every single day, recap in 2023, a look ahead in 2024, different scenarios, predictions, outlooks, a bunch of nonsense. So if this is your daily dose of college football, you need to survive the dreaded offseason. Smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment telling me who do you want to see replace Halfley at BC. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, college football aficionados, and Boston College faithful everywhere about this channel because we're on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. And we're going to get there, so jump on in while the water's fine. Continue to follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. That way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. So, Hafley off to the NFL. He is now set to replace Joe Barry. And on paper, I kind of understand this move. There was some positivity moving forward in the ACC. Boston College had a pretty decent year. They took Florida State down to the wire, one of actually the Seminoles' toughest games, and they won a bowl game. So, it felt like things were trending up for Halfley in a year that was, in my opinion, must win or go home. And now he's taken his talents to the NFL. Regardless of what he thinks about the future of college football, that's neither here nor there. There is someone that has to come in and be a prominent name in the ACC. So who are the top candidates? Let's start off with the first one. He is the long shot. It's Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen is in the perfect win-win scenario moving forward for his career, and I wholeheartedly respect it. For those of you that don't know, didn't want to recruit at the elite levels alongside Alabama, LSU, brought it up to attention when he was at Florida and was fired. Since then, he's gone on to become one of the best commentators in college football, both calling games and in the studio for ESPN. And he basically every offseason is going to be linked to a job, and he can pick and choose if he wants to go there. If Boston College is not worried about the recruiting prowess and just about developing talent and being able to get the best version of an offense out, it's very hard not to look at Mullen. His offense was always fundamentally sound at Florida, at Mississippi State, and he was able to find the right coordinators to build defenses that were very established, very much something that you would want to hitch your wagon to and think that you have a chance of winning a conference title. That could be the case, but again, it has to be up to Mullen. If he's happy in a situation at ESPN, he ain't got to take a job. If he wants to get back into coaching, there have to be a ton of ramifications added into the resume. If so, I think you're in a very good spot, but that doesn't always mean that you're going to be somebody mentioned for the job. Next up, an actual candidate that is a head coach right now waiting for his next big shot. It's Toledo head coach Jason Candle. Candle was a disciple of Matt Campbell, and a lot of people thought he's going to be here for 3 years, maybe 4, and then he'll follow the same pathway, get a Power 5 job. He's dominated with the Rockets, and the Rockets are in a very great situation. If you know anything about the athletic complex there in the MAC, they're one of the best teams when it comes to resources. So he's got a good job. And last year, coming off of an 11-2 year, took his team to the MAC conference title, one loss during the regular season, or they would have had a shot at playing in a New Year's Six bowl bid because they would have been undefeated. And it came down to the wire against Illinois. He has a record of 65-25 in almost a decade with the Rockets. He's had multiple 10-win seasons, multiple 8+ win seasons. And he was mentioned for a variety of jobs this offseason when it came to openings at the Power 5 level. A lot of people pegged him to replace Dino Babers at Syracuse. They ultimately went with Fran Brown. Maybe this is another ACC school that could pry Candle away, blow out the match that is in Toledo, and start a brand new chapter in Boston. I really do think that this would be a good fit. I think that you're getting to the point of where Candle is going to be one of those coaches who we slowly start to pass on by. So for him, if he gets an offer, this may be the move he has to take, because if he doesn't, he may be stuck in Toledo for the long term, or he's going to have to take a step back, become a coordinator once again, just to become a head coach. Now, there are some coordinators that are going to be mentioned for the job. The first one, Kentucky's Liam Cohen. He's a native of Rhode Island, so location-wise, it makes a little bit of sense for him to want to return home. he also has that kind of good balance that you look for in a coordinator. He understands what it would take to win at the NFL because he's coached at the NFL. He's been an offensive coordinator, a quarterback's coach, a run game coordinator, and he's had experience at the collegiate level. So he understands the differences about what it takes to win at both levels and what scouts are looking for. That's automatically a feather in the cap. On top of that, Kentucky had one of its best offensive seasons 2 years ago with Will Levis as their starting quarterback when Cohen was calling the shots. Top 15 in total yards, top 25 in scoring, top 15 in passing. They were humming and they got to 10 wins. Maybe this is what you're looking for. They took a step back. They got a little bit better last year with Cohen back in Lexington. Maybe if you just give them a little bit of time to develop, 7-5 turns to 8-4. 8-4 turns to 9-3. 9-3 turns to 11-1 and a trip down to Charlotte. And I can tell you this much. Cohen at some point is going to become a head coach. He's young. He's up and coming. There's a lot of people that like him, and he has SEC experience. Maybe the location of him growing up near the state of Massachusetts brings him closer to home. If offered the job, it wouldn't come as a shock. Somebody that loves Boston, just was in Boston, has spent most of his time in Boston. New offensive coordinator at Ohio State, Bill O'Brien. So a few years ago, when O'Brien was coaching at Alabama as the offensive coordinator, there was speculation that he was going to be the front runner for the Virginia Tech job when they fired Justin Fuente. That came to cease. It ended up going to another Penn State coach. It was actually Brett Pry, the defense coordinator. But the ACC has always been a place where I think if you were looking at O'Brien, he makes a little bit of sense. He makes sense in the Big Ten somewhat, but he absolutely makes sense in the ACC. He's been around Boston. He's a Boston native. He's a Brown. He played at Harvard. He flirted with a job once before when Hafley was actually up for it, so it wouldn't shock me. He has had coaching experience in the college football level. He does. And his offenses are sound when they're humming. Like, a lot of people want to look at what happened at Alabama because they didn't win a national title. They still had a Heisman Trophy quarterback. They still finished top 15 in passing and in scoring back-to-back years. They finished top 20 in total offense, top 10 in the second season when they went 11-2. There was positivity around Bill O'Brien. Do you want him running your entire program like an NFL franchise? Hell no. That would be absolutely moronic to name him the athletic director and the head football coach. But if you just allow him to work the X's and O's, there are names out there that aren't going to be at the same level as O'Brien. And he's not loyal enough to stick around with the job he was just hired for. He just was in Boston. He was in Foxborough last year. And I do think that there are pieces on campus that would see this offense, understand the pro concept, and truly gravitate towards a guy like O'Brien simply because he understands the lay of college football and he understands the NFL. Would not be the worst hire out there. Just basically you didn't sell your house. Hopefully that didn't happen because Bill, you might be going back to Massachusetts at the end. Another Ohio State coach, Justin Fry. Guy was at Boston College for a couple years, if I'm not mistaken, 5 seasons as an offensive line assistant coach, then worked his way up to O-line coach, has experience as a play caller. He worked underneath Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator at UCLA. He knows what it takes to be able to win. And I do think that there is an emphasis when it comes to offensive line coaches being head coaches. Like, you look right now at what happened at Michigan. They promoted Sharon Moore. He was the offensive coordinator, but he also was the offensive line coach. That offensive line was about as sound as humanly possible for 2 years, and it's why they won the Joe Moore Award in back-to-back seasons. If you can establish fundamentals in the ground game, in the trenches, don't allow opponents to bully you, then you have a shot. Regardless of what you have at wide receiver, regardless of what you have at running back, if your offensive line creates opportunities for scoring drives, I think that's a good hire. Fry's done that. They've had a top 15 offense the last 2 years. His offensive line has been good. Last year took a dip. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Ohio State definitely had its lackluster season when it comes to offensive line, but they produce first-round talents every other year. It would be far-fetched to say that you wouldn't want to at least consider a guy like Justin Fry. And last name on the list, Al Washington, the Notre Dame offensive line coach. Again, we're going right back to offensive line. This one makes a little bit more sense because of, number one, young, up-and-coming, and he is a Boston College starter. 3 years on the offensive line and then later coached on both sides of the ball for BC before he eventually went to other jobs and found his way to South Bend, Indiana. The thing with him is that it's a homegrown feel. You want somebody that understands the culture of the Eagles. You want somebody that knows what the red bandana game is all about. You want somebody who gets the rivalries, who understands what it takes to be representing the cream color. I mean, the bronze or what would we say? Maybe tan color and the burnt maroon. You know what that is about. And Washington gets that. And he's up and coming, and maybe he's a coach that could end up being here for the long term. I look at this move a little bit like Brent Key. Anybody remember that name a couple years ago? Actually, last year. Takes over for Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. Understands what it means to be a Yellow Jacket because he played for the Yellow Jackets underneath Paul Johnson. Not Paul Johnson. Why? I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Anyways, played underneath that. Played for Georgia Tech back in the day. Really strong coach. Really, really smart guy. Builds culture. They go bowling this year. There's a lot of positivity. I think Al Washington would be a very good fit for this squad. Maybe not the best fit, maybe a little bit in over his head, but you give him time, let him adapt. I do think that at least there should be a conversation bringing back a former alum. But those are the coaches that I would be looking for. Dan Mullen would be at the top of my list. I don't think he's going to take the job. If I'm looking for a plug-and-play guy that understands the lay of college football, give me Jason Candle from Toledo, Liam Cohen from Kentucky, guys from Rhode Island. Would make a lot of sense to come back home, especially with his offensive pedigree. Bill O'Brien, I know there's going to be some jokes out there. Terrible GM, not a bad head coach. Offensive line coach Justin Fry at Ohio State, and of course, Al Washington from Notre Dame. If one of those coaches is named the next man in command for Boston College, I think the Eagles are in good hands. If they go in a different direction, like we always say in college football, never say never, never bet your ass on anything. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.